One mother on the way to the store was confronted, while the woman you're about to hear is recording the whole thing on video.
Señora, no tiene que decirles nada si tiene papeles.
Hey, ciudadana americana.
Yes, I am. What's your badge
Are you a
number?
United States citizen?
I am. Are you?
You are? Okay,
Are
I'm
you?
gonna need you to stay away from here.
Okay.
All right?
Señora, ¿cómo se llama?
Hey.
Señora, ¿cómo se llama?
No está impidiendo la
Señora,
investigación.
¿cómo se llama? Para decirle a su familia.
MSNBC's Jacob Soboroff spoke to her daughter, who was on the street searching for her mom. He joins me now. Also with us, former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Joyce Vance, and former communications director and spokesman for Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Michael Hardaway. Jacob, as I said, you met her daughter, Samantha, shortly after her mother was taken by agents. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Chris, all of this played out around the time you and I were on the air together yesterday, and in and around the Cicero neighborhood, the most Hispanic neighborhood in the entire state of Illinois. There were Border Patrol agents and other federal agents just on cruising around town, basically, and picking up people, looking after people at supermarkets, at the bakery that I spoke to you from, and on this residential street. And Samantha, the daughter of Marcelo, the woman you see picked up there in the video, she's 53 years old and has been in the United States for 30 years, was going to pick up food to make for dinner, came up to me and said, I can't find my mom, and can you help us? And this is what happened after she and I talked. Watch this.
Señora, ¿cómo se llama? Para decirle a su familia. Don't touch me. You're not allowed to touch me. Señora, ¿cómo se llama? Dime su nombre.
We can stop if you want.
Dígame su nombre.
Stop.
Look at guys. Look at this fascist right here.
That's her. It's her.
I'm so sorry to be the one to show you this picture of your mother. What's it like for you to see her there with her ponytail and her backpack and her pink sweatpants, talking to these guys with guns and masks and their bulletproof vests?
I mean, based off her facial expression, she looks ready to cry. And that saddens me because she just wanted to go to the store. She was gonna make some albóndigas, which is basically a meatball stew.
The fear that you sense there, Chris, is a fear that I think is really palpable all across Chicago right now. You don't have to wait for the National Guard to see militarized federal law enforcement on the streets of this city and of Cook County and the surrounding Chicagoland area. They're already here, and they are already instilling fear into the community, documented, undocumented, all of it.
So, Joyce, a lot of questions. We see in that video that the agent is asking this woman recording it if she's a U.S. citizen. We didn't show the whole thing, but he asked it over and over again. She says yes. And then there's this other photo. This was shared by a Chicago Tribune reporter. It's a federal agent there who is pointing a weapon directly at a U.S. citizen who is recording them. Basic question: do people standing on public property have a right to record or photograph?
Absolutely. As long as you're standing in an area that is not well within the territory that law enforcement is using. In other words, as long as you're not directly interfering with their operations, and especially when you're on public property or your own private property, you have the ability to make these sorts of recordings. If they try to take away your phone or whatever device you're using, you should very clearly state while you're still recording that you don't consent, because you are entitled to do this.
Can they just walk up to someone randomly, someone who they don't have a picture of, somebody who is wanted? Can they just walk up to anybody on the street and demand to see their papers?
So here's where I think we have the first level of problem. You know, traditionally the rule is that you have to have some sort of reasonable belief that the person that you're confronting is not a citizen and that they don't have a legal basis for being in the country before you would engage in that sort of behavior. But we've repeatedly seen ICE and seen this administration go into court making the argument that they're entitled to do that on a very slim basis, someone's appearance, the language they're speaking, where they're standing. And we've seen courts push back and say, you know, that's not enough. So the reality here, Chris, is should they be doing it? Is it legal? Probably not. but they are doing it. It appears to be a policy that comes from the top down and will continue to be used, at least in the breach, until some court is able to enter a definitive order and enforce it.
So, Michael, another frequent guest on this program is Jack Jenkins. He works for the Religion News Service, and he spoke to clergy and faith leaders who have joined in the protests in Chicago and in and around that, area ICE facility. One pastor told him, quote, "She has been shot multiple times with pepper bullets, including while she was praying with her eyes closed and hands lifted, wearing a clerical collar and stole." Michael, do people need to think twice about protesting in this political environment?
This is horrifying. They should do the exact opposite. Now is when we need everyone to come out and protest this horrific travesty that's happening in the streets of America. To give you some perspective, Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in America. And so these areas they're targeting are specifically Hispanic areas. There are other parts of the city on the north side that have a significant number of European immigrants, for instance, that ICE is not at all targeting. They're only targeting heavily Hispanic areas and some black areas. And so this is a horrific travesty, and we need all citizens to come out and protest this in support of their neighbors and of the people that are their churches and at work and that sort of thing.
So I have kind of a two-part question, Jacob. I was thinking as I saw the shock on Sarah's face as you were showing her that video, if she even knows where her mom is now. And then yesterday, as you said, you were on this program. You shared the story of two men taken by ICE, Mario and Daniel. You talked to Daniel's cousin, David, about the search to find him. What is the process of even trying to track down a loved one who was taken in look like?
It's so dizzying, as it relates to Samantha. Her mom is at that Broadview ICE facility, and we were there last night. She's trying to get, the requisite information. It's called an A number to track down her mother and get in touch with her. Same goes for Daniel's cousin, David, and the family of the other gentleman who was taken with him. They too believe that they are in Broadview, but right after you and I got off the air, Daniel's cousin, David, approached me on the street outside that same bakery and asked me some of those questions. I think it's good insight into hearing and learning about how hard it is to track down family once they're indiscriminately taken off the street. Watch what David said.
I'm really sorry again that you're going through this, and I appreciate it. And I know that you're looking for him. You still don't know where he is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find any clues, ideas, see where they took him, why they took him, and what's the whole purpose for this.
Any clues or ideas where they took him or why they took him? I mean, these are basic facts that it's not like these agents are saying afterwards, leaving a card and saying, here's how you find your mother or your cousin or your husband that we just took off the street and put into an unmarked minivan. They just go, and people are left wondering what to do. And there's just two examples of that I encountered yesterday.
So, Joyce, the Los Angeles Times also had a story. They shared a story of a man who broke his leg during an arrest by ICE. His leg was broken. He had been in the hospital where federal agents had him under 24/7 guard, where he, quote, couldn't speak privately with doctors or lawyers, and was interrogated while medicated and in pain. He was surveilled there for 37 days without being charged. Is that legal?
This case sets off a lot of alarm bells. A federal judge has just entered a temporary order releasing him from this sort of restraint and custody, finding that he's been irreparably injured by this conduct and that he's likely to prevail when he has the opportunity to present his case. I'll tell you what's deeply alarming about this. There's a broken leg, a serious injury that occurs during the arrest, and then this individual is held incommunicado. He's not advised of the charges against him, and ICE uses this very thinly veiled excuse that they're not able to talk with him because of his injury, when clearly they are. So they have violated his due process rights on multiple bases. That's certainly inconsistent with the law. But you also have to ask in this situation, given his injury, whether there's been some effort to disguise or hide an illegal process that involved excessive force at the time that his arrest was made, and how his lawyers will proceed in that regard.
So, Michael, we're seeing more and more people go to these detention centers. The Washington Post reports that in the middle of this government shutdown, ICE closed a key detention oversight group. Let me read the quote. It inspects detention centers to ensure they meet federal standards for the safe and humane treatment of immigrants. That's been closed. What do you make of that?
The administration is out of control. At some point, Congress has to perform some oversight, which is its primary duty in addition to providing funds for the government to run. That's the only way that Donald Trump can be reined in here. The leader in the Senate, the speaker in the House have to do their jobs here. We need hearings in terms of all of these things, many of them which are illegal and many of them which violate the Constitution. And so at some point, we need an infrastructure there. I'd also say this to you. Having worked in the House and the Senate, I think a policy solution is the only answer out of this. You can't just pick up random people one by one when there are 11+ million people here and not have a policy solution in terms of potential citizenship, in terms of some sort of process. That has to happen before you would actually pick people up. So they've in some way put the cart before the horse, as my father would say.